co-direct Black is King. And thank you. And that journey, is what, led me here. Scott Sanders and the team saw Burial of Kojo, and, thought that I had something to offer. But I was deeply intimidated. I always say this, the color purple is sacred text. You don't just step into the color purple if you have nothing to truly say or contribute to. So my knee jerk was immediately to just say, I don't know what to do with this. Of course, I read Marcus's script, and then kind of what for me though was the thing that made me go, I think I have a way in, is just returning back to the source. Returning back to Alice Walker's brilliant Pulitzer Prize-winning book. And I found what I was looking for on the first page, first line, Dear God, right? And that line, immediately I said, anybody who writes to God must have an imagination. And that imagination kind of became the world in which this film was going to live, and I knew that this was going to be our offering, our contribution to such a brilliant canon. I knew that if we could just expand Ceelie's headspace, because I truly believe that often people who have dealt with trauma and abuse are miscategorized as docile and passive and waiting to be saved. These are things that couldn't be further from the truth. If we were in their heads, we will know that they're actively trying to liberate themselves and to liberate others, right? It's what we kind of find out with Ceelie's character, and so that was kind of what led me to go, I think we have something to say. And once, I found this brilliant cast. Come on, y'all. Once I found this brilliant cast, I knew that we were going to justify our reason for being. And of course, I called my mom, and she was like, "But I told you." so that's how I get here.
Thank you. So I want to go a little bit further back and ask Scott. So for those of you who don't know, Scott knew this story should be a musical in the 90s. Am I correct, Scott, by going that far back? Late 90s, with Peter Gruber, who bought the rights to the book. Scott, Peter Gruber, right? And so you knew, and then, you had to, in a way, convince people that this should be a musical. And then you produced the musical on Broadway. I was curious, what made you want, believe, know that this story should be resurrected again for a new generation? What is it about this story that resonated with you back then as a musical, and what made you so insistent on us seeing it again in this new form today?
I fell in love with Ceelie as a character, as a human being who had challenges in her own right. We all have challenges in our lives, many of us similar to Ceelie, many of us very different than Ceelie. But her perseverance, her ability to go through life with grace when she was up against so many obstacles and really challenging moments in her life, she was the most remarkable protagonist that I had ever read in a book ever, fiction or nonfiction. And that was, and I had a lot of friends around me who were going through things in life, and again, they didn't have exactly Ceelie stories, but there were a lot of Ceelies around me at the time, and I felt like that character had music in her soul and deserved to be on a stage, and that was really, and I had never produced a musical in my life. I worked at Radio City Music Hall. I had done a whole bunch of other different kinds of things as a producer, but I never produced on Broadway, and I really didn't know what I was doing. And the only thing I felt was that there had to be authenticity in the writing, and so there had to be artists of color, and there had to be women that were authoring this piece. There weren't a lot of those choices.